Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh and very good evening to all of you. Bishari sadri wa yassir amri wahlul 'uqdatam min lisani yafqahu qawli. Okay, so thank you to Dr. Mahir for introducing me just now. Okay, so all of you know my name is Masitah binti Ahmad. So Dr. Mahir was invited me to give the, I don't know whether this is a class or this is kind of like talk about the chapter 6. Okay, and Dr. Mahir say I should presents this chapter 6 regarding with this philosophy, research philosophy and paradigms. So let me share yours my slides. Okay, I hope you can see my slide. Okay, so can, because once I open my slide, I think I can't see the face of you. So can you see my slide, Dr. Mahir? The
Yeah.
rest of you?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Good. Okay. Okay, we start with this chapter 6. So basically, when we talk about this, sorry, always like this. Okay, when we talk about this chapter 6, it's quite important for us to understand because this is about the research philosophy and paradigm. So when we are doing the research, this is the most, I can say, the first in our research things. We have to make sure we really understand in which hours research is supposed to be the philosophy and the paradigms. So basically, we hope that end of this chapter, okay, we're going to understand about this research philosophy and paradigm, whereby I also really hope, okay, when we finish this chapter, you should be able to define the key terms of ontology, epistemology, and explain their relevance to the information science research. So I know that all of us, basically, most of you are master students and PhD student. For sure, ours fields is more on the information science research. So due to that, we have to understand what actually this ontology is about, what this epistemology is about, because this is the terms which is very important when we talk about the research philosophy. What we can say that these two terms, especially this ontology and epistemology, okay, I don't know why tonight I'm a bit quite nervous because a lot of students here. Okay, so sorry about that. Okay, so basically, when we talk about these two terms, we can say that these two terms, the ontology and epistemology, is very important for us to make sure, because they will guide us to which part our research philosophy should be. Okay, so that's why these two things, the key terms about this ontology and epistemology, we will learn today. And then we also going to hope that after we finish this chapter, you might explain the relevant for information science research of the philosophical perspective, such as positivism, realisms, pragmatisms, and interpretism. So basically, all the terms that I mentioned it just now is something which is very important also when we talk about the research of the philosopher. So don't worry, we will go through each of the slide here, and I hope that you also might understand the main research paradigms which are significant for your information science research. So yeah, this is what you should be able to when we finish this chapter. Okay, let's go to the next slide. So before we go further in details regarding with this research philosophy and the all the things that I mentioned it early, you can look into this research onion. So based on here, okay, you can see this is also another, we can say, like a guideline for us when we are doing the research. Okay, basically all of this part is very important, and when you can see in this onion, when we talk about the philosophy, it fall in the first layers of the onion. So here's the things that we're going to learn today. Okay, and you can see how important it is for us to really understand, because if you are not really understand about this philosophy, it will make you not really into, especially as what Dr. Makir mentioned it just now, when we talk about this philosophy and about all these positivisms, realism, interpretisms, and pragmatism, it fall under chapter 3, whereby when, for examples, like we have the lecturer who are doing this, the panels who are reading your proposals, your thesis, they will look into that matter first. If you are in the right track, you know what you are choosing, whether positivisms, realisms, or interpretism or pragmatism, then they will see again with your objective, all these things have related. So once you choose the right uh, area in this philosophy, then means that you are doing the right in your research. Okay, so this is the layer, as I mentioned. You can see the first layer of this research onion. And next, okay, so actually what this research philosophy is about. So basically, based on Sounder et al. 2009, as you can see in this slide, we adapted the definition for this research philosophy. Actually is an is a overarching terms, okay, relating to the developments of knowledge and the natures of that knowledge. That is the, we can say, the basic things. So when we talk about this research philosophy, what this research philosophy is about is the terms, okay, which is when we talk about, we like to develop a new knowledge. We like to talk about the natures of the knowledge. Like let's say some of you are doing in research regarding to behaviors of some of the organizations and so on whatsoever. So yeah, this is the research philosophy that we have really to understand. So we have to develop this knowledge, okay, and the natures of the knowledge. So that is the first things that we have to understand regarding with your research philosophy. And after that, okay, when we think about this research philosophy, of course, these become words of the ontology. Okay, because yeah, we think about the research philosophy, it will also concern of the natures of the reality. Because when we talk about ontology, basically, it's part of the research philosophy whereby you will concerns about what's the reality on that field. What is the reality, the natures of reality regarding with this research philosophy that you are going to try to solve the problem and so on. Okay, and sometimes, and when we talk about this ontology, it's also raise the question of the assumptions, because we know that part of the when the first thing that we are trying to do in research, okay, and yes, it's also part of the research philosophy, we are talking about the research problem, right? So we try to find out the problem, what have been happening in certain of this area, or the topic that you are trying to do the research. So based on that, of course, there will be a lot of question, which is make assumption by the researcher. Okay, how about the way the world operates and commitment held to particular view. So that is also, we can say, the concerns inside the ontology. Okay, so yeah, we will do with all this nature of reality. So that is part of the ontology. Basically, when we talk about this ontology, this is also whereby we can also find out others area. Sometimes even though we are talking about this research philosophy purposely in our information science, okay, but still there's a lot other research in other fields that sometimes when we go look into their fields, okay, they still have the reality, which is we can also make assumption on that particular field. Okay, okay, I hope for time being, are you still with me? Can you if you have any questions, I mean during the I presenting all these slide, I hope you, if you have anything you would like to ask me, you can just raise your hand, and yeah, maybe I will try to answer the question. Okay, is it okay? I hope everybody is okay at the back, because seriously I can't see your face. Okay, I hope you're still with me now. Okay, okay, next. This is the one I mentioned it just now. Part of this research philosophy, this is the two things, the ontology and epistemology, whereby both of these we call like kinds of the tools helping us to guide our research philosophy. Meaning that the ontology and epistemology is something which is very important to cater, to guide us to make sure our research philosophy is in the right track. So that's why we need to learn, and we have to really understand what's the significance about this ontology and this epistemology with our research philosophy. So basically, as I mentioned early, our topic is about research philosophy. So when we talk about research philosophy, yes, we need to also know about the ontology and epistemology. Okay, next. So let's see, we dig more and we will see more details about the ontology. I already mentioned it early about this ontology, something we try to know the reality in kinds of our research. So the first aspect of ontology we discuss is objectivism. Objectivism. So this portray the position that social entities exist in reality external to social actors concerned with their existing. So basically, what I can make a summary based on this statement. When we talk about this aspect inside this ontology, actually we are discussing on the objective. Okay, so it's also mentioned here. We are also trying to portray actually these social entities in reality, actually what they are concerned. Okay, actually what they are trying to find out about these social actors. Okay, and when we talk about this ontology, another aspect, the second aspect, we also going to talk about the subjectism, because in the subjectism it's whole the social phenomena which is created from the perceptions and consequences actions of those social actors concerned with their existing. So as you can see here, there's two aspects that related with this ontology. First about the objective, and the second one is the subjective. And again, this is also the most important part that you have to really, in your first chapter, second chapter, you have to find out in what actually area you are trying to come up in your third chapter, which is your methodology. So due to that, as mentioned here, is about your social entities, about your social phenomena. So this is the most also important when we talk about ontology, whereby you have to understand, you have to really know what the objective in your research and what the subjective that you're going to put in this ontology. Okay, and after that, based on the Blakey 1993, basically Blakey have described the root definitions of ontology. It's about the science or study of being. Okay, and develops this description for the social sciences to encompass claims about what exists, what is look like, what unit make it up, and how this unit interact with each other. So is clear cut here. When we talk about this ontology, based on Blakey also, is something that study of being. Okay, and sometimes people was just make assumptions. Okay, they say like, for examples, I always heard people will say women always do more shopping rather than men. That is we call as assumptions. They claim about that what exists. Is it true? Okay, so and sometimes people say another statement that always they make, as I can say, as assumptions. When women drive, okay, they are more appropriate way, or they are more behave rather than men when they are driving. That is what they call, we can say that assumptions. Okay, so that is what also they claim about something which exist. And in short, we can say that this ontology describe our view, whether it's claims or whether it's assumptions or on the natures of reality. And specifically, so this is the objective reality that really exists, or only a subjective reality created in our mind. I gave you the example just now about the shopping. So people always say women like more shopping rather than men. Is that true? Okay, so that's why when we put it this ontology in our chapter 3, so we really need to put it right in a proper way, mention that is that only a claim? Is that only assumption? Let's say happen to be there is other researcher do the research and they manage to come with a data, with the evidence, whatever the assumption that we mentioned it just now actually is true, then it will be a different. Okay, so the way when you are trying to write in the chapter 3, you have to refer in your chapter 2, meaning that because we know that in our chapter 2 we are doing all this literature review, so you will put it also relate with whatever that you find in your chapter 2, then you also going to put it in your chapter 3 so that they got connections between chapter 2 and chapter 3. Okay, so that is about our ontology. More details about this ontology we have here for the everyday examples. Okay, they use the examples of workplace report, asking one to question whether it's described what is really going on or only what the author thinks is going on. I actually just give you just now the example like about the shoppings, about the driving. So this is another examples. Okay, meaning that they say that normally we keep on asking whether it's really going on. It's just what we are thinking as a researcher, because this is the author. Okay, so meaning that as a researcher, maybe we observe something and then we thought that, oh, this is what happened actually, but is it true? That's why, okay, they go on the highlight the complexity that is introduced when considering the phenomena such as culture, powers of controls, and whether they really exist or just simply illusion, further extending the discussion as to how individual and group determine this reality. So basically, in simple words, class, we when we talk about and we when we try to understand about this ontology, is referring with the words of reality. Does the reality exist? Or only through our experience, because when we talk about reality, sometimes it will be based on our experience. Like let's say myself, based on my experience when I driving, I can see not only the woman have all kinds of we can say like a bad driver, even the man also got the same thing. That is only based on my experience, the reality that I gone through. But maybe it's different with others, like Dr. Mahe. Maybe he been in a very a lot of others country in the UK, so he also sometimes driving and so on. So maybe he through a different experience. So this is also what we call as exit independently of those who live it, meaning that is the objectivism, and when it comes to the experience, we call them as a subjectism. Okay, so this is the most I can say the easiest way how to explain between the subjectism and objectivism. Okay, next, we already finished with the ontology. Now we will go to another importance about this research philosophy is the regarding the epistemology. Okay, so I can say that for this chapter, you learn a lot of new words, I think, the terms which is technicals when we talk about the philosophy in our research. So when we talk about ontology, we are talking about something reality, or is it just assumption and so on. But as I mentioned, the easiest words, if we think about ontology, we think about reality. Now we are going to talk about the epistemology. So this epistemology is concerned what constitute acceptable knowledge in the field of study. So it's closely coupled with the ontology and its considerations of what constitutes reality. So when we talk about epistemology, it consider the view about the most appropriate way of inquiring into the natures of the world. That is based on the Easterbay, Smith, Struppers, and Jackson 2008. So that is what epistemology can be considered by this author, by the researcher. And another way, when we talk about this epistemology, what is a knowledge? And what are the sources and the limits of the knowledge? That is based on Erickson and Covalent 2008. Okay, so they define, when we talk about this epistemology, it's related with the knowledge. And not just that, it's also about the sources and the limits of the knowledge. Okay, and when we talk about this epistemology, it's also referred to the question. Begin to consider the research method. So Erickson and Covalent go on to discuss how this epistemology define how the knowledge can be produced, and we can argue with it. Um, if in ontology we say about the reality, but when it comes to the epistemology, we talk about how this knowledge can be produced, what way, and is the knowledge can be argued. For examples, like just now we talk about the shopping things. So let's say happen to be there's a researcher doing on this topic about the shopping things. Okay, so they got the new knowledge, and based on their finding, okay, I make assumptions. Okay, I just make like kinds of data, just I don't know, maybe some of people outside there already do this research, but so far I not come across yet. I didn't read any articles regarding on this topic about the shopping things. Okay, maybe they have outside there, I just the one who not read yet. Okay, so when we talk about that shopping things, so based on maybe, okay, we make assumption, maybe when they do the research, they find out actually no, not the woman who are like to do all the shopping things. Basically, the men also do the shopping things. So this is the new knowledge. As I mentioned, at first we make assumptions, say that the women are doing all these shopping things, like to do shopping. But when we come across with all the research, we find out actually no, the woman and the man is equal. Both of them doing the same shopping thing. It's just that maybe the product or the services that they are buying is different. Okay, like women, they like to buy a handbag. Women always like to buy a new clothes. But when it comes to men, maybe they like to buy all the car materials. Okay, or maybe they like to buy, let's say, uh, all the IT gadget, for examples. Okay, so based on this finding also, we know this is the new knowledge. And how are we going to produce it? Based on the data. So how is it? So, and in the same time, can we argue the knowledge that been found in this research? Okay, so that is the epistemology. And Blakey also, as you can see, most of our reference for this epistemology and ontology, especially for this research philosophy, we like to use Blakey. And because I can see that Blakey give a lot of definitions, and the theory that come out from this Blakey also most simples, and it's easy for us to understand. Okay, so Blakey 1993 also described, when we talk about this epistemology, is about the theory or science of the methods or grounds of knowledge, whereby we are going to expanding this into a set of claim or assumption about the way in which it is possible to gain a knowledge of reality. So how what exists may be known, what can be known, and what criteria must be satisfied in order to be described as knowledge. I think when we talk about information science, okay, I can I feel that all of us understand how the information have been produced, starting from the data, and then they come up with the information, and based on this information, after we make the plannings, we organize it, and then it will becoming a knowledge. So due to that, when we talk about the epistemology, okay, we have to really know, is that the knowledge that we managed to get from this, we're trying to find out, is it something exists, and then how it will be exist, and also is it can be known, because sometimes maybe the knowledge that we know, which is totally different from what we've been predict, or the assumption that we made, and in the same time the criteria that we find out from this epistemology, is it can be satisfied to make sure that in order for us to describe what this knowledge is about. So Chia 2002 described the epistemology as how and what it is possible to know. So yeah, that's more easier and simple words. In others, in a summary, we can say that describe this epistemology is how and what is possible to know, because the need to reflect on the method. So if you didn't have the method, the exactly the right method, and also the standard through which reliables and very verifiables knowledge is produced, you won't get the right whatever that you try to find out in your research. So that's why we need to really make sure whatever the epistemology and whatever this ontology that you are deciding to use in your research, well, you should have to make sure it's also you have to make sure that it's also in the method, in the standard, and it will can be reliable and also can verifiable, because without it, the knowledge that you produce, it won't be, we say, we can accept it. So that's why we need to really make sure when we choose which type of epistemology in your research, you have to make sure it can be reliable and verifiable. So that is our epistemology, and we also learns about this ontology, and still there's a lot of others, we can say, like definitions and explanations about this epistemology. Another based on the Hedge and Kuhn Life 2006. So they summarize that epistemology is knowing how you can know. So knowing how you can know, and it's also can be expand this by asking, how is knowledge generated? Plus, just now we say that part of this ontology, we are talking about our objective, our subjective, is it based on our experience? So when it comes to epistemology, we also have to know how this knowledge has been generated. Just now I was giving you an examples about the driving things, or the shopping things, which is not really covers in our field. Let's say, can anybody share any research that you are doing so far, or maybe we can share something that what you are doing it now, so that I can give as an example to lie to to make the explanations on this knowledge generated is more easier for me to explain to you. So anybody would like to share to me what's your your topics in your research? Anybody? Or do you still didn't have any topic? I heard that in this class also we have a student, a PhD. Am I right, Dr. Makhe?
From a PhD background. I think
Anybody, anybody would like to share with me your topic?
Assalamualaikum, Doctor.
Waalaikumsalam.
Actually, my title is not finalized yet,
Yeah, okay.
but
Even-
I will do on cybersecurity,
Okay.
focusing on blockchain.
Okay. So your topic about the cybersecurity blockchain. Okay, this is something interesting. interesting because blockchain is something I can say is a new, is it? Can, right?
Yes,
It's a
correct.
new knowledge. Even though recent years, I can say that a lot of new researcher was trying to come up with their findings about this blockchain, but still there's a lot of issue pending about this blockchain. Okay, so when we talk about blockchain, for examples, like our friend here, she's going to do about this blockchain. So again, we have not really many researcher doing on this topic. So due to that, how are we going to make sure that the whatever our friend here come up with his finding, okay, the knowledge that she was trying to uh, get in her research, it's really which is everybody can accept it. And on top of that, is it she's using the proper way to make sure that this knowledge regarding with this blockchain are really in the right track, in the right place. So that's why how is knowledge generated is also part of the epistemology, the question that normally need to be asking. And on top of that, we also what the criteria discriminate good knowledge from bad knowledge. Yeah, we have a lot of issue also when we talk about this blockchain. I heard that this is what I heard. Okay, and sometimes I read some articles about this blockchain. They say that when we use, maybe I'm wrong. This, as I mentioned, based on my reading, based on what I get information from others, they say that this blockchain actually not really uh, been taken cares in the right, in a proper way, appropriate way. Why? Because there's a lot of like scammer will use this blockchain, and not just that, even the criminal. This is, as I mentioned, based on my reading, based on what they mention it to me. Okay, so for us to make sure that our knowledge that we're going to find in our research about this blockchain, is it really a good knowledge? Are we going to teach them a bad knowledge also? So due to that, we have to make sure the criteria when we are trying to come up with this knowledge regarding with this Bitcoin. Blockchain. Sorry, I always make this mistake about the Bitcoin and the blockchain. Actually, this is the two thing which is totally different. Okay, so blockchain. Okay, so when we talk about this blockchain, there's a lot of good knowledge also, and also we also have a bad knowledge. So how we going to make sure that our knowledge is in the good knowledge, so that we can share with others, researcher, with others, user, and so on. Okay, and on other that, we also have to, how should reality be represented or described? Because sometimes uh, if we like to share, we like to represent it, whatever the finding that we get, especially when we talk about reality. Uh, how we going to present it? Because not everything that we presenting, some of our audience we really understand. So that is also a word, the question that we need to cater. We have to make sure that reality it's been represented in a right and a good way. Okay, so they go on a highlight the interdependent relationship between epistemology and ontology, and how one both inform and depend upon the other. As you can see, I show you at the beginnings of our slide, I'm talking about how the connections between ontology and epistemology will create the your research philosophy. So as you can see here, it's also mentioned here, both of the relationship is actually interdependent. Epistemology and ontology is they are related with each other. Without it, and if you are choosing the wrong epistemology and ontology in your research method, it will make your research philosophy also not in the proper way. Okay, so yes, it's also mentioned it here, it's depend upon the other, both of it related each other with each other. Okay, uh we already learned about the epistemology, and then we also learned about this ontology. Now we go another words, another term which is also part that we can use in our philosophy. So it's a eziology. So basically, for this eziology, is a branch of philosophy that study judgment about the value. Ontology is about the reality. The epistemology is something about the knowledge, and now we are talking about the eziology. It's about the value. So although this may include value we possess in the fields of the aesthetics and ethics, it is a process of social inquiry with which we are concerned here. So for this eziology, actually we are trying to see in part of the value related with the aesthetic and the ethic. So the role that your own value plays in all stage of the research process is of great importance if you wish your research result to be credible. So once we have this eziology, okay, it will make sure that whatever the judgment that we have in our research, it's in the result that we will get from our research, it will make credible, meaning that people won't, they can't just simply say that, oh, your research actually is not get a right result, it's wrong, your finding actually is not appropriate, your finding, they shouldn't have that kind of statement. They won't they didn't and what I can say is that they won't ever make that kind of statement, because you have this eziology. You already make the statement inside your chapter 3, mention that what is your value, what the research value that you will find out in your research. Okay, so other than that, when we talk about this eziology, it's also choosing one topic rather than another suggests that you think one of the topic is more important. You will choose the philosophical approach is a reflection in your value, as is your choice of data collection technique. So for examples here, to conduct a study where you place great importance in data collected through interview, work suggests that you value personal interaction with your respondent more highly than their anonymous view expressed through your survey data. So as you can see, based on these examples, they mention it, how you conduct your study. For example, here he say that your place is very great important, so you will collect your data through interview. But then your work will suggest it's more value if you can personal interact with your respondent. Okay, rather than you just simply make an appointment without having any values of personal interaction, you just do the interview. So based on here, once you would like to conduct your study, okay, then you will try to make a personal interaction first before you directly go and do the interview. And part of it here, it also mentioned that it's more highly than they are anonymous, because sometimes when we are dealing with people who are not uh, they doesn't like to have their participant in real things. So the finding that we'll get sometimes is not like what we are expecting. So that's why they say the anonymous view expressed through survey data. So normally those who are doesn't like their names to be appears, they suitable to use this survey data. Okay, they can express through that because they know nobody will know who are they. Okay, and this is also aspect in this philosophy. So we have this positivism. What is positivism is really the stance of the natural scientists. And then we have this realism. And when we talk about this realism, it's about the direct and critical realism. And about the interpretism, researcher as a social actor, meaning that we will becoming somebody who are actually pretending that we know about the socials, aspect, what the issue related with the social things. Okay, and the last one here, the axiology, whereby we studies judgment about the value. So actually all of this is under aspect of philosophy. So you might choose which one suitable with your research, but before you go with this aspect, you have to really understand what ontology and what's yours aspect, epistemology, that you will put it inside your research. Okay, so next, okay, now we're going to study more, and we will go into details about this positivism. Class, do you have any the audience? Okay, I'm not saying it's a class, it's an audience. So audience, do you have any question so far, or you already lost with me, or do you still okay?
Hello, Assalamualaikum, Dr.
Waalaikumsalam.
Mas.
Yes,
Hafizi sini.
yes, Mr.
Uh,
Hafizi. Yes, Hafizi.
um, uh, I have a few questions.
Yes.
Um, Looking back at the research onion, we know that research philosophy is the outer layer.
Yeah.
So my question is, when should we use research philosophy? Is it before we design our research questions, or we define our problem, or after we define our research problem? That is my question. When should research philosophy happen? That's my first question. My
Okay.
second question is, how do we know that we choose the right philosophy?
Okay.
Is it depend on our belief or depends on our reading? That's
Okay.
my second question. And then my last question, sorry, Dr. Mas. My
No,
last
this is
question,
okay.
when we have set our research philosophy, will it change to another philosophy or another, such as from realism to interpretism? I mean, changing during we do research, or we have to set only one, or I mean, we can change it later. Macam
Oh,
parti politik boleh lompat-lompat.
okay. Okay.
Thank you.
Well, your question is very good actually, the question. Let me start again. Your first question, you asking about the philosophy. Actually, I should uh, write down your question. Actually, just now I remember. Okay, your first question is about the onions, right? You asking me when we going to use the. Can you repeat back? So sorry.
Okay, so
The first
question number
question.
one, when
Okay.
should we use our research philosophy?
Okay.
Question number two, how do we know that we have we
The
have
right
chosen the
philosophy.
right philosophy? And number three, can we change our research philosophy
Okay.
later?
When we need to use the philosophy? That's your first question, right?
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
So when we need. Okay. Um, this is my answer. Okay. Uh, when we need to use the philosophy, basically, you say just now, is it before you come up with your research problem? Is it before you have your objective, or after? Right. That's your
Yes,
question.
yes.
Okay. Uh, in a simple answer, what I can say is actually based on your supervisor. Okay, that is the
Okay,
first thing, because sometimes when you have discussion with your supervisor, okay, they will see your understanding on the research that you're going to propose. Okay, and so based on what we talk about this philosophy, actually some supervisor, that's why I say this is based on also what I learned before. Okay, maybe like Dr. Makhir, Dr. Zaidi, they got a different way, but in my case, okay, during my study with my supervisor, when we talk about this philosophy, for them, it's not really into matter, meaning that it's important, still important, but for them, they say that what actually you would like to come up with your output, your finding, supposedly what? let's say you would like to come up with a model, you would like to come up with a framework. So they will concern on that matter. But when we talk about information science in our field, actually we have to understand our philosophy first. So that's why I say refer to your supervisor, because your supervisor will tell you which one is better. Is it you like to do this philosophy first? But in theory, okay, supposedly we have to find the philosophy first. We have to really know what our philosophy, then it will be easier for us to guideline with our problems, with our objective and so on. Okay, so that's the first. I hope it's answering your question. But still, as I mentioned, whatever is, you have to go back to your supervisor, because they will know better. Even though I'm your supervisor also. Okay. Hafizi actually my student, Dr. Mahir. I'm the second supervisor for him. Okay?
Oh, okay. Okay.
Uh-huh. Okay, Hafizi, that's your first question. I hope it's answering.
Yeah, okay, Doctor.
Okay.
Thank
The
you.
second one, you asking about what your second question?
How do I know that I have chosen the
Ah,
right philosophy?
okay. How do you know whether you are choosing the right philosophy or not? Is you will find out whether you are choosing the right philosophy or not when you are writing the chapter 1, 2, okay? And when you go for your chapter 3, you can see the lines of each of this chapter is very smooth. Meaning that when you go to when we read your first chapter, your second chapter, the each of the words that you put it there, when you go to the chapter 3, we can see that all of these chapter have a continuous, meaning that we understand actually what you're going to do in your first chapter. You already explain it, what your objective, your research question and so on. And then when we go to the chapter 3, we can see that the continuous is there. So maybe Dr. Mahir also can help me.
Yeah,
Dr.
sure.
Mahir,
Okay, sure.
uh,
Okay, regarding
mm,
with first question, you were asking about where you're supposed to put our research paradigm, our research philosophy. Hafizi, yeah? Okay, it depends your research approach, whether you go under quantitative or qualitative. For qualitative, definitely you have to explain clearly in chapter 1 your research philosophy, definitely. But for quantitative research, since you want to test your theory, your framework, definitely it should put under research method, under method, which is chapter 3. Yeah, because in qualitative research, you aim to develop or establish your theory, yeah,
sorry.
not theory testing. Yeah, that's why I said your philosophy, your research paradigm should explain in chapter 1 for qualitative research. In quantitative research, you need to explain
I
in
forgot about
chapter
that.
3 because you want to test
Mm,
your theory. Then, actually, when talking about research philosophy, you cannot easily or blindly change your research philosophy.
mm,
Since you already decided in early stage, you cannot easily change. Definitely, because you must know your direction, how knowledge is created, how your knowledge is created. So when you state and also when you focus what you want to come up and also what you want to solve, definitely you state only one paradigm. You
the
cannot change
paradigms.
easily. Yeah.
Mm. That is for the
Am I
third
answering
question.
am I answering your question, Hafizi?
Yeah, Dr. Mahir. Yes, I
Yeah.
very clear, very clear. Yeah,
Yeah. You
thank you,
should
Dr. Mahir.
yeah, you should know your stance. Your stance means whether you go under qualitative or quantitative. Then
Quantitative. Yeah.
you yes, when you explore through literature search, literature review, you may not understand clearly and go in depth whether you want to go using qualitative or quantitative. Yeah, your stance cannot change easily, like your mazhab. You cannot change. Uh, yeah, you
Yeah.
cannot change based on your needs. You cannot use that way. Yeah. Okay.
Mm, okay.
Okay, Fizi.
Uh,
Yeah, okay, thank you, Dr. Mas,
yes,
Dr.
good.
Mahir.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, thank you, Dr. Mahir, for your explanations. I also forget about the when we are choosing which method, whether you are using the quantitative and qualitative. Supposedly, that is also part of. We have to, as a researcher, once we know which method that we are choose. Yeah, and as I mentioned again just now when we talk about the philosophy, yeah, which is something that you can simply, Dr. Mahir also explained it just now. We can't simply change it. Let's say you say, oh, this is not right philosophy. No, because when we come to information science and especially in social science research, once you've been decided, so you have to use it until at the end of your research. And on top of that, actually that's why in the first place you really need to make sure that yours research questions, yours choosing of your objective must be in really in the right way. Okay, so other than that, the choosing of your method also is very important, whereby all of this will also affect your paradigm and research philosophy. Okay, thank you, Dr. Mahir, for clears, and I hope everybody can now really get a clear pictures when we talk about the philosophy, and you can see that how important it is. So you have to make sure you choose the right and the in the first place you have to choose the right philosophy. You can't change in whatever that you like to change in the future. You have to choose in the first place the right one. Okay, so can I continue with this positivism, or is any others audience would like to give any question? So can I continue, Dr. Mahir?
Yes, yes, proceed. Yeah, you can proceed now.
Okay, okay, okay. So next is about the positivism. So when we talk about this positivism, it can be defined as a research approach. Okay, so we will use this as a how to that employ empirical method. So make intensive use of quantitative analysis or develop logical calculi to build formal explanatory theory. So based on this positivism, basically what we're going to use is to make sure our research approach that we choose is employ this empirical method. So normally they use the quantitative analysis, okay, and also they will develop the logicals for this formal explanatory theory. Next is the realism. So another philosophical position which relates to the scientific inquiry. So this essence of realism is that what the sense show us as a reality in the truth. So that object have a existent independence of the human mind. And this in this sense, realism is opposite to idealism, where the theory that only the mind and its content exists. So this part of the realism, something you can say is a bit different from this we have in this positivism, whereby in positivism we only employ the empirical method. Okay, but when it comes to realism, actually we try to come up with what the sense show us this reality is the truth. So we use the object that is already been existent as an independence and the human mind. So it's opposite from the idealism. Okay, and this is the direct realism and critical realism. So it say that what you see is what you get. So what we experience through our sense portray the world as accurately. Um, this is also when we talk about the direct realism. Whatever that we look in our surroundings also will affect when we are also related with our experience, because we gone through with this. And again, as I mentioned earlier, when we talk about the experience, each of us will have a different experience. Maybe during my times I have a different experience because my places that I'm doing my research is in the different area environments. So I get a difference in my idea to come up with my research. And we have this critical realism, whereby this critical realism is about the realist argue that we experience sensations, the image of this thing in the real world, not the thing directly. For examples, the easiest examples that I can give you. Let's say I'm staying in Rembau, and all of you staying, maybe some of you are staying in Sabah, some of you like Dr. Mai was staying in somewhere in Shah Alam. Okay, so even though, okay, we are staying in different places, and in the same time, let's say there is a moon up at the ups there. Okay, and maybe what I see from here, the moon is just half of the moon, but maybe because of the cloud and so on, so that's why I just see the moon's half. But when it come to like Hafizi, he was in Sabah, in Labuan, so maybe he can see the moon's exactly the full of the moon, because in Sabah there's no, in Labuan there's no cloud at all. So but maybe for Dr. Mahe, he will see in a different angle, so he will see the moon was not half or not the full moon, it's just a layers of moon. So this is what when we call that the experience that we gone through is totally different due to that. So that's why the argument sometimes will be make our experience more sensation. So that's why the image when we talk about okay, actually like this class, when we talk about direct realism and critical realism, it will be how we see something, how we look in this research is about, or the topics. Like let's say just now our friends talking about the blockchain. Maybe in based on my experience, based on my reading, I see this blockchain actually something which is not really keen or really important. That's me. But our friend will see that actually this is very important because the new way how we going to use this all the money and so on, the especially when we are using the um all the buying things, okay, the transactions when we are using all the online things, so how important this blockchains in the future. So that's why due to that she thinks this is the right topic that she would like to do. And when it comes to this kind of thing, so when she's going to look into this matter, based on what she's get the reading about this blockchain, so that is also we can say as a critical realism, and it's also directly on this realism. Okay, next we can say our last in this philosophy is about the interpretism. So actually this interpretism advocates it is necessary for the researcher to understand differences between human in our role as social actor. So whereby this interpretism will emphasize the differences between conducting research among people rather than objects, such as truck and computer. So in our interpretism, whereby we look and we trying to conduct our research is based on the people surrounding us rather than the object that we have. Like what we have here, they say that truck and computer. Of course, truck is different from computer. Computer is something that we can control it. Same goes to truck, but when we facing the right things, whatever the facilities that we have inside the computer, and whatever in truck that we have is totally their object is different, but we can make a research on the people who are handling these facilities, the truck, the computer. So the peoples that we are trying to look into. Okay, so that is the emphasis on the difference between conducting research among peoples for this interpretism. So when we talk about this interpretism, it's also research in concern with the meanings that people attach to norms, rules, and value that regulate their interactions. Again, as I mentioned, part of this interpretive research, actually, we look into the meaning what these people attach. For examples, maybe, okay, at most of people who are doing research regarding this blockchain in country, western country for examples, okay, last time most of the research have been done by the western country about the blockchain. But when we talk about the people who are from western country, their norm is different, their rules are different, and the value that they have there is also different. So maybe now we try to come out with our research, we try to focusing in Malaysia environments. So Malaysia environments peoples, they are different, they got a different rules value. So that is also what we can talk about when we talk about this interpretism, whereby we concern all of this matter. And then we care in taken not to impose a previous understanding of norm, rules, and value on others, but rather to understand their belief and action from their points of view. As I mentioned, in Western country, maybe they say that this blockchains is very important for them because they nowadays they doesn't like to use money in real money. So most of their what we call that their transactions and everything, when they're buying a things, they would like to use blockchain for examples. Okay, but maybe in Malaysia or in Asia country, they still say that based on their belief, they say that the money is still important, even though they not handling the money or they not touch the money, but as long as they can see the numbers of the money inside their account, ATM machine and so on, they say that okay, I have the money. Because sometimes when we talk about the blockchain, I know that we can't see the figures and so on. It's more on like they buy, I don't know, that is based on my finding or my reading. They say that the blockchain is like something like that, you buy some kinds of uh, uh like account, but we can't see the exact money or whatever related with the money. So maybe as I mentioned, but in Western country, even when I'm studying in Australia, I never have money in my hand because all of the time I only bring my card because I would like to buy anything. I just use my card. So that is what they believe, because when you go to their country, they say that no need to bring any money because that is what they believe and their norms. Maybe in Malaysia, especially when we are facing with all these peoples, because they get used to have money in their hands. Okay, so that is also we can focus not only on what they tell us directly about the reason for their belief and action, but also on the social practice that underlie them. And the social practice give meaning to social action. So again, whatever the practice that they have use it, sometimes and most of the time it will be different in each of the country, in each of the race, and also the action for each of the society and community. So due to that, that is also we can using this interpretism as part of our research philosophy. Okay, and next we have pragmatism. Pragmatism hold that the most important determinant of epistemology, ontology, exology adopted in the research question. Okay, I remember that just now when Hafizi asking about this philosophy, is it when we should use it? Is it in the first when we trying to do the before we have this objective, before we have this research problems on? As you can see here, it's also stated here, whereby when we talk about this epistemology, ontology, and exology, actually is adopted in our research question. So it still have connection with each other. Okay, and then okay, this is the tables that will can compare of 5 research philosophy in business and management research. So basically what showing in this slide, going to talk about in our field, which is business and management research. So you can see here when we talk about the ontology, the natures of reality of or being. So real, external, and independent. So one true reality, universalism, univisalisms, and granular things, which is granular means thing, and also order. So when it comes to the next layer, this is under positivism, okay, for ontology, and which is real, externals, independence, and so on. And the next one, under the critical realism, so you can use this stratified layers, the empirical, the actuals, and the real, meanings that actual and the real happening in the society and so on about our research. And then we have the external, independent, intrascenes. Okay, we also have the objective structures and causal mechanism for our critical realism. And under interpretism, whereby it's more complex and rich, whereby the socially constructed through culture and language, multiple meaning, interpretation, realities, flux of the process, experiences, and practice. So you can see when we talk about ontology under positivism, this is the research philosophy that we might use in our research. So we can choose either one. When we go for this epistemology, which is related with what constitute acceptable knowledge that we can use. So under positivism, it's about the scientific method. So you can observe it and measurable facts, law like generalizations, okay, the numbers, and then causal explanations and predictions or contributions. So this is under positivism for our epistemology. And when it comes to under critical realism, okay, we have this epistemological realism, and also we can choose knowledge historical, status and transitions, and then we have facts, social constructions, historical causals, explanation as contribution. So we also might use one of these critical realism for our epistemology. And the last one under the interpretism for this epistemology in our business and management research, we can use theory and concept to simplify. Okay, so we can choose any theories and conceptuals to simplify our simplifies our research. And then also we might also choose focus on narrative, like story, perceptions, and interpretations. And the last one, we also might use the new understanding and worldwide worldview as contribution. And typically, okay, we have another one is the ideology, roles of the value. Under positivism, you might use the value-free research, researcher is detached, neutrals and independence of what is the research, researcher maintains objective stance, and so on. But when it comes to typical method, okay, so typically we deductive, highly structured, large samples, measurement, typically quantitative method of analysis, but a range of data can be analyzed. Okay, class. When we look into this table, this is a guideline for us based on our method, which one actually suitable with ours. We should choose our research philosophy for this ontology, epistemology, and axiology. So you have to look into this. Like let's say you have this highly structured research, and then you have a large samples, your measurements, and then you have methods is quantitative. So it's suitable for you to use these types of ontology, epistemology, and axiology. But let's say your method is about the retroductive, in-depth, historical, situated analysis of pre-existing structures and emerging agency, range of methods and data types for fit subject matter. So it's suitable for you to use this method. For ontology, you can choose based on one of these ontology, epistemology, and axiology. And the last one here, for typically inductive, small sample, in-depth, investigations, qualitative method of analysis, but range of data can be interpreted So it's suitable for you to use these kinds of research philosophy. Okay. And another ontology, epistemology, and axiology. And this is the typical methods. Okay, we have like the deconstructive, whereby you have reading text and realities against themselves, in-depth investigations of anomalies, silence and absence, range of data types, typically qualitative method of analysis. So you should choose either one here from this anthology. You might use the nominals, complex, rich, social constructed through power relation, some meaning interpretation, realities are dominated and silent by others. Flux of process, experiences, and practice. That is your ontology. For your epistemology, you might use something which is related count as a truth, and the knowledge is decided by dominant ideology. Like let's say we have a lot of ideologies nowadays. People was saying that the millennia peoples, the millennia teenagers, they are always people who are um, self uh, their self-esteem is very high, and whatever they would like to do they just do. They won't asking other people to the advice from other people. They would just do that. So maybe what we can say, this is something which is dominant ideologies. So due to that, we can choose this kind of the epistemology way when we have this kind of ideologies, and then focus on absence, whereby we have silence, oppress, repress meanings, okay, interpretation and voice, and we also have to explore exposures of power relations and challenge our dominant view as contributions. That is under the postmodernisms for the epistemology. And then we have the axiology for this postmodernism, like value constituted research, researcher and research abandoned in power relation. Some research narrative are repressed and silenced at the expenses of others, and researcher radically reflects fees. Okay, so that is the typical method as I mentioned earlier. And the last one under the parametism, for ontology, you still can use this complex risk and external. And then reality is the practically consequences of the idea, flux of the process, experience, and practice. So all of this ontology, when you refer back to your typical method, whereby you're following research problem, your research question, range of your methods. Is it mixed? Is it multiple? Qualitative, quantitative, action research. Emphasize on practical solution and outcome. So you might use these pariticisms of this ontology, practical meaning of knowledge in specific context, true for this epistemology, true theories and knowledge are those that enable successful action, focus on problem, practice and relevant, problem solving, and inform future practice as a contribution. And under the axiology, value driven research, research initiated and sustained by researcher, doubts and belief, researcher reflexive. So all of these tables actually is a guideline for us also when we are trying to choose which one is our research philosophy under all this ontology, epistemology, and axiology. You might use this as our guideline when you know what your typical method. Okay, now we will go under this research paradigm. The definitions of this research paradigm is a way of examining social phenomena from which particular understanding of these phenomena can be gained.
Dr. Masitah,
Yes,
can I add a certain point
sure.
for previous slide? Can you back to previous slide?
This one.
Okay.
Okay.
We're talking about postmodernism and pragmatism. Some scholars like John Dewey, they give the same direction, which is postmodernism and pragmatism can go together. That means not much different between postmodernism and pragmatism. They can go together. You can choose either one, whether postmodernism or pragmatism. Yeah, that means they carry the same characteristic and also same point that a researcher can follow. Yeah, that means let's say if I want to choose pragmatism, and then the panel asks me, why don't you choose postmodernism? Actually, it's the same thing because some scholar and some researcher they believe that postmodernism and pragmatism can go together and also have similar characteristic.
Meaning
Okay.
that in one research we can use both, is it?
Yes, yes.
Uh,
It depends. Yeah, it depends. You can.
yeah.
It doesn't mean that you simply use
Choose both.
both
Yeah.
concept. Yeah, maybe
Based
you
on
can choose
our
either
research.
one.
Yeah.
Yeah, they want according to certain researcher and also scholars. That means you cannot rely only postmodernism and discarded pragmatism because they can go together.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you, Dr. Mahir, for the add value about that. So, hopefully that after this, that's why again, as what Dr. Mahir mentioned, is based on the scholars and research that you are going to do. So, sometimes you might use both is better, but again, you have to make sure the value that you put it in there, you have to justify. You have to make sure that you have a clear view why you choose both. Okay. Okay. Next. I can continue now, Dr. Mahir.
Yes, yes.
Okay. Okay. Thank you. Research paradigm. Now we will see this about the research paradigm. Definition for this research paradigm, as I mentioned just now, a way of examining social phenomenon from which particular understanding of these phenomena can be gained and explanations attempt. So this is based on the Saunders et al. 2009. What I can make like summary for these definitions. Actually, when we talk about the research paradigm, how we look into the social phenomena and the understanding, are we really look this phenomena something which is good things or something is a bad thing. So and then after that, when we really understand on the social phenomena, after that we will explain it and to make sure people really understand what we found from our research. So it's also based on the research paradigm. Okay. Next, research paradigms, more explanation on it, is a framework that guide how research should be conducted based on people philosophies and their assumption about the world and the natures of knowledge. That is based on the Collis Hussey 2009, page 55. So that is another definition when we talk about what actually this research paradigm. And we also have here philosophy. So what actually the philosophy is the use of reason and the argument in seeking truth and knowledge. Supposedly, I should put this slide in earliest of our discussion here because when we knows about these definitions of research paradigm, the philosophy, then we will see the connections, the relation, why we have to know about the ontology, epistemology, and axiology. Okay, but never mind. This is based on the Oxford Compact Dictionary and Thesaurus, 1997. It mentioned here that the use of reason argument in the seeking truth and knowledge, especially of ultimate reality or of general causes and principles. Okay, so that is the meanings, what this philosophy is about. If you didn't really knows, okay, what you're going to use as a reason and also the argument that you're going to use for you to seeking the truth and the knowledge, so how you going to know whether your research is really something valuable? So due to that, that's why we need to have this philosophy. Research philosophy is very important in our research. So a little history help explain why there is more than one view of reality and valid knowledge. So actually there's another slide, but I'm not sharing it today. It's about the history regarding with this, why we have to explain on all this matter, and why we have to have these paradigms, and what happened. Okay, there's a history, how this thing beginning. When we talk about the research philosophy, what's happened actually. But I also added some of these table here, so you can see, starting from 1990, 2009, 2011, 12, 12, and 13, what's happened in the research paradigm. So we have here Guba 1990. At first, he was starting with this positivism, post-positivism, critical theory, and constructivism. But then Creswell, I think most of the researcher in our field like to use Creswell. And after that, we have Sounder, 2011, whereby he becoming more specific when it comes to the research paradigm, especially for this philosophy. So, and even the one that I was explaining to you just now, it's based on the Sounder also. We have this parametism, positivism, realism, and interpretism. Okay, but in Crosswell, they got this positivism, constructivism, advocacy, participatory, and pragmatism. And then we have Wahyuni, okay, 2011. He had this positivism, post-positivism, interpretism, and pragmatism. For Scotland, 2012 also. He was come out a different way, whereby he was telling about scientific, interpretism, and critical. And the last one, Williamson, he got this positivism, post-positivism, and interpretism. So, which type research paradigm is suitable for your research? You are the one who know which one is better based on the explanation that we have just now. Okay, and this is the research approach adapted from the Robson 2002. So basically, there's a 5 sequel stage of testing your theory. First, you have to deducting. Okay, this is about the deductions. When it comes to research approach, so you have to deducting your hypothesis. So you need to expressing the hypothesis operationally. So you need also to testing the operational hypothesis, examining your specific outcomes of the inquiry, and you also modifying the theory if necessary. Sometimes there's a few researcher may say that the theory that they adapt is already suitable with their research, so they no need to modify the theory, so they full using it the theory. But most of the time I can say that most of the researcher will like to modify the theory, because to see what difference between the one that have previously and what they managed to get in their research. Okay, and I think this is going to be our last slide, if I'm not mistaken. Okay, the characteristic of deduction also, explaining causal relationship between the variables, establishing control for testing hypothesis, independence of the researcher, concept operationalize your for quantitative measurements, and also the generalization. So this is also the characteristic that you can use when you are trying to deductions on using all of this your research approach. Okay. Oh, we still have another one. Oh, we have a few things. Okay. Induction. So this is another research approach, the number 3, continuous from the first and second approach. When we talk about induction, building theory by, so you have to understanding the way human build their world. I also mentioned it just now in the previous slide. I'm also giving you the examples whereby when we talk about building a theory, people will have their different view, because even the statement just now mentioned, what you see, that's what you get. So that's why when we talk about our research approach, we must make sure that when we are building the theory, we must to understand how the way these human build their worlds. Chinese peoples in Chinese country, is different with what we have here. Let's say our friend from Nigeria, maybe our friend have a different way how their life have built, but in Malaysia we have different way. So that's why when we trying to build our theory, we must know and really understand the way of human, and after that we have to permitting alternative explanation of what is going on. Because sometimes like now we having this COVID-19 all over the world. Okay, and the way how we conducting our handles, the government, each of the governments in the different country, they will handling the issue in a different uh, way. So when we are explanations, whatever the way that they are using it to reduce or to make sure this COVID not been uh, becoming worse in their places, of course the explanation will be have a lot of difference. Okay, because they have the alternative to use it, and when we are explaining it is based on our understanding. And the next is being concerned with the context of event. So yeah, when we are doing these inductions, okay, especially the building the theory, we need to see the context, the event, what happened in the places. So each of the places, of course, they will have a different way for us to handling, and using more qualitative data. Because we are not say that the quantitative is not good, but when we go for qualitative, normally we can get the informations, the knowledge is directly from this person who are experienced with that event, with that they can explain is based on their way of the go through with that experience. For examples like COVID, when we talk about COVID, okay, COVID-19. Those who happen to be becoming a patients of this COVID, let's say they have this gone through with this COVID-19, maybe they've been sending to the hospital and so on, and they survive. They managed to through with this all COVID-19. When we interview them with those who are never have experience with this COVID, totally different. The knowledge, the data, the evidence that we have from them is totally different. Okay, so that's why we also going to using a variety of data collection method. That is actually the best way, because if we use a lot of data collection method, we can find a lot of other result. And of course our finding, it will be more we can say a lot of others finding that we can find if we use a different data collection method. Okay, and of course when we talk about choosing your research approach, you have to write the right choice of approach help you to make a more informed decision about the research design. I think this also going to giving answering for the question that we have before, because it also stated here, if you want to choose which decisions for your research design, you have to make sure you choose your approach in a right choose. Okay, so think about which strategy will work for your research topic, and you have to adapt your design to cater for any constructions. So basically this is adapted by the Easterby Smiths et al 2008. And combining, so when we combining all of this research approach, think worth considering. For example, the natures of the research topic, the time available, the extent of risk, the research audience, your manager and makers. So all of these will becoming more words. Okay, if we can considering all of these, it will also helping us to choose the right research approach for us to do in our research. So this is the deductive and inductive research. So it put it here, the major differences between this approach. So you might also use this table as your guideline when you are talking about the induction, emphasize, and induction, deduction and induction emphasize. We have like for deduction, we can use the scientific principles, and it's moving from theory to data. But when it comes to induction, it's about the gaining and understanding of the meaning human attached to event, and it's a close understanding of the research context. It's different from deduction because deduction is more on theory to data, and then the need of explain causal relationship is between variable. So you have to know what the relationship between the variables. Okay, and other than that, the collections of your quantitative data. For induction, is collection of qualitative data. So based on this thing also will helping you to choose which one, okay, the right for you to using which approach. And applications of control to ensure validity of the data is part of the deduction emphasize, and the operationalizations of concept to ensure clarity of the definition is a highly structured approach, researcher independent of what is being researched, the necessity to select samples of sufficient size in order to generalize conclusion. But in induction, we have the more flexible structure to permit change of research emphasize as the research progress, and the realizations that the researcher is part of the research process and less concerned with the need of generalize. So based on this, you can see the difference between deductions and the induction emphasize. And examples, okay, the table that we have here, when you are using positivism or interpretism, the suitables for you to see what the approach might be suitable for these paradigms, okay, the main paradigms. So for positivism, the topic or the method that you the suitables for your approach is quantitative, and it's more objective, scientific, and traditionalist. But when it comes to interpretism, it's suitable with the qualitative, and your it's more on subjective, and it's more humanist and phenomenological. It's not the traditional like the positivism. So based on this table also might also use for you, helping you when you are try to find out which approach actually suitable with your paradigm, main paradigm. And here's the components of research paradigm. We have ontology, epistemology, axiology, rhetoricals, and methodology. So this is just like add values from the slide that I have, just to make ours clears on the what each of these component of research paradigm it's about. Okay, and I think with that, I already finished with all these chapter 6 regarding with your research philosophy, the ontology, epistemology, and all of these things. Okay, so with that, I think I already finished. So do you have any other questions? And even the time is already 9:23. Based on the timing that Dr. Mahir giving me, we should ending this class is in 9:45. So any question from the audience?
Assalamualaikum, Prof.
Yes, yes.
Prof, can I say that when we start to questioning something, okay, it's mean that we are directly uh, talk about research philosophy. Can I say like that?
I agree with that statement. Yes, actually, as Dr. Mahir mentioned it just now, that's why when we are choosing the philosophy, actually, when we talk about research philosophy, is something which is a guideline for us. Okay, what should we do in first place? So yeah, I'm agree with your statement. Basically, whatever that we're going to go through with our research, we have to refer back the philosophy, because the philosophy is something which is been accurate and real, where we rely on to justify why we choose like this, why we choose like this. And at the end of our research, okay, when we manage to get all this finding, the result, of course we have to justify why we find like this, because based on the philosophy that we already choose in the first when we are doing our research. So it's a guideline for us. It's like a right way, a right track for us to make sure that whatever that we did actually is a right things, not something that assumptions and everything or whatsoever, something that not been approved by the um, researcher, by the previous researcher. Okay, Zafri? I hope that's answering your
Yes, thank you,
statement.
thank you, Prof.
Okay. Okay. So, how about the rest of you? I hope, based on our class today, at least I really hope that when people after this, when at least Dr. Zaidi asking you, so what you get and what do you understand about this ontology, some of you can manage to answer at least the definitions of the ontology is good enough. So might means that you get something from this class for this class. I hope so. Okay. So any other question? Or maybe Dr. Mahir would like to share any others informations about this philosophy, research philosophy?